to carry the stories of the survivors into the future. For we are the ones who one day may be called upon to say, I was not there, but I know many who were, and this is what they said. For those of us who were not there, who seek to somehow comprehend the effects of the Holocaust and the events of the Holocaust, each of these stories becomes a vital link in understanding a kaleidoscope of atrocity, unquote. Hecht's purpose, indeed mission, is about zachor, remember, or as Wiesel so eloquently states, quote, to bear witness for the dead and for the living. There is response in responsibility. To forget the dead would be akin to killing them a second time, unquote. It is finally about tribute, renewal, and encouraging survivors, their children, and now their grandchildren, to continue the chain of testimonies, to contribute to the archive of writings, to connect the generations, past, present, and future, with memory, with love, and with hope. Thank you.
It's open for discussion and comments.
I am typically of the perspective that academics in these kinds of positions shouldn't talk much more than 20 minutes. So I purposely kept it short. I could have gone on another 20 minutes or longer, but I wanted to open it up for discussion, conversation. The scrolling PowerPoint that you see includes some quotations from Wiesel, of course, and the quotation by Hecht that I read. And then it shows you the cover of her books in German, and then also, of course, this one, which is the translation. And it shows you what she looks like. She is certainly more frail than she was when I met her, which was a long time ago. She just turned 90, and I met her when she was 16. So it's been many years. Questions, comments? Yes, Gina.
My mother and my mother-in-law are both survivors, and my mother-in-law is the most outspoken, not meaning outspoken, just she talks a lot more and probably has more stories to tell than does my mother-in-law. But my husband wonders, are these stories really true? And did everything really happen? Or is it a compilation maybe of something that happened before the war and something that happened after the war? But, I mean, she does repeat the same stories over and over again. And, who can say that there's fact there without embellishment? And remember, she was a young child. I mean, now she's 83, so she was a young child during the war, seeing something through her child's eye.
All of that is important. That is especially the last part, seeing it through a child's eyes. I have read many memoirs that were written by individuals who were relatively young at the time, who remember certain things vividly and other things not so much. The question you raise, and the question your husband raises, is a very important one, and one that is discussed all the time among scholars who relate to memoirs, and especially among historians. For a very long time, historians did not appreciate, I'll say it that way, did not particularly appreciate memoirs about the Holocaust because they felt that it was somehow a distortion of the facts. It was a distortion of experience and so forth. That has changed. Historians overall have come to appreciate memoirs as an additional component, and that's what they provide. Now, the memoir that I wrote about my mother is obviously not one that she wrote, but through my eyes and from her stories that she told me. And she also repeated stories over and over and over again. She remembered her childhood, certain aspects of her childhood vividly. Memoirs typically, as opposed to autobiographies, catch snippets of memory and snippets of time. Certainly, most memoirs that I've read are somewhat chronological, because otherwise, they'd be jumping around all over the place. So you have to have some thread to follow chronologically. But I would say that the memories that this is your mother-in-law? Okay. The memories that your mother-in-law has, first of all, should be recorded, if they haven't been. And above all, they can be researched. When I wrote the memoir about my mother, it's a researched memoir. I researched pretty much every aspect of every detail that she told me. And I found, I would say pretty much that it was all accurate. Now, what happens in memoirs, or what happens with memory, is that there can be some distortion. There can be some bringing together of details or conflating of details that may have occurred at one time rather than another time. Depending upon what it is, it may or may not matter. In other words, if my mother talked about, which she did, the trip that she took by train via the Jewish underground, if you will, from Hamburg to Genoa, and then got on a boat that eventually brought her to this country. It doesn't really matter whether the things she told me that happened on that train happened, at the beginning of the journey, at the end of the journey, in the middle of the journey. The fact is that it happened. In many cases, I would say that you have to take the stories with a certain grain of salt, but certainly not discount them. I'll leave it at that for now.
Well, I do think her point is that all memory through time is selective, and
Sure, absolutely.
there's no way
Yeah.
that you see things differently, and it's transmitted
Right.
through time and through
Right.
experience,
Right.
and no one forgets, and we don't retain everything that we experience, no
Mhm.
matter how
Mhm.
how traumatic.
Mhm.
So, I think your
Right.
point is well taken. That
Oh,
one
yeah.
has to
Oh,
be
yeah.
very.
One has to be careful.
With biography and with autobiography,
Sure.
that they're very selective. There are selective things, whether it's conscious or subconscious.
Yeah.
I think it would be fair to say that the longer a period of time that elapses before the person writes down their recollections, the more room there is for inaccuracies to creep in. But I don't think that's a serious problem, because historians would try to recreate history by looking for confirmation and overlapping of different people's stories. And you don't have to assume that every date and every recollection is perfectly accurate. You can still get a good feel for the mood, the way people lived, what it was like to be in the country at that time, without every detail of every memoir being accurate. I was disturbed by what I thought I heard you say, Roz, when it sounded like Ms. had sort of put down a little bit what Steven Spielberg has done. No, do you misunderstand? My impression is that Spielberg is sort of rushing to record as many recollections of as many people as possible while they're still alive, which is right in line with what you would like to have done.
The point that I was making, actually, it wasn't Hecht at all. It was Henry Greenspan, who is a scholar, right, and author. What he was saying, and I agree with this, the work of Spielberg and Lanzmann and Lawrence Langer and others who who work with testimony projects, Sid Volkowski in our backyard, University of Michigan, Dearborn, and Charles Silo, a psychologist who has a project called a Project of Honor, in which my mother and I actually participated in.